Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today I'm going to do a disassembly on this VZ.61 Skorpion AEP. Hey guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do consider liking, commenting and subscribing, because those interactions are going to really help the channel get seen and help the channel to grow. If you want to visit my socials and my Discord and my merch store, the link is down below in the description, the Linktree link. If you want to support the channel a little bit more, the join button usually down here takes you to channel memberships, 99p a month, totally optional, really appreciated. You get loads of cool content just for being a member of the channel. So I've bought this Boneyard JG Skorpion, which has got a little bit of an issue. Ooh, look at that. Ouch. So because of that, I've decided this is a great time to sit and do a disassembly. I am struggling to find anything that is remotely close to a decent disassembly on the internet of one of these. So this will work for the well version, the TM version, any of the TM Mod D and Mod M, as well as the JG. So let's have a look and see what we can get into with it then. So I'm just going to open the stock up. So with that, it literally just clicked off there and opened up. Now I am guessing by the looks of that, flathead screwdriver, and we can get this stock off. Helps if I had to get the screwdrivers. So I've unwound it so far and it's loosened up, come out of its threads, and it has just literally come off. So that would have come off easier if I'd have... Oh, it's springy, look. It's springy. So if I compress it in and then swing it in, he says famous last words. It compresses in and you can manipulate it back into place as well. So I'll get that out of the way. Next thing then, by the looks of it, is that grub screw there? So we've got a grub screw here which should release this pin out the front. So we're going to need quite trusty T6 torque screw on this little grub screw here. So I'm going to fully remove it, and then I should, yeah, that pin comes out. It is stiff, so I'm having to really work on it. There we go, popped out, and you can see in the middle there, hopefully, where the grub screw would have sat to keep that pinched in. So the grub screw came out of there and the pin came out. So I pushed it through from that side of the upper's already coming off, look. There we go, be careful with a pistol grip. So that just came sort of forward, up and off. Put that down, and there we've got the barrel assembly there. Teeny tiny little barrel. So if we twist the barrel, twist the hop, there is barely any hop in there at all. Possibly enough to do a 2. I wouldn't have thought a 2.5 would be very effectively hopped by that, but that is the barrel and hop, at least looked at. There is a 3D printable top dead center TDC mod that you can do for this, where you print off a little bit, you tap a 5mm grub screw through it, and it gives you much more adjustment to be able to lift much heavier BBs. So that just dropped out of there then. So obviously it's got a set of teeth on it. Now in the middle there, there is one tooth that is quite thick and chunky than the rest, and if you look down into there, there is a specific gap for that one to sit, so that you know that you've got it lined up. So I know that it's on safe right now. That would take it to single shot, and the other way would take it to full auto. So I'm just going to lift that up and out of the way. Now, guessing all of this would come out the other way anyway, but let's have a look. Now there's a screw in there, and we'll get that screw there next. So there's a screw, a Phillips head screw just down in here. Always be, if the screwdriver's not quite gripping in, choose a slightly bigger version of the same screwdriver, just because you don't want to round out those screws. So that's literally just had one screw, and it's come straight out of there. It's exposed. Another screw point there. The gearbox isn't quite coming up. I'm guessing this is in the way. So I'll put those two together. Let's get it slightly bigger. There we go. So you don't want to round the screws, because if you're rounding the screws, they're going to be a pain to get in and out in future. And the head, so I've lifted that out. That is moving now. It looks like there's another screw just under there. And that's now come out. There we go. So there's a spring, which I'll figure out in a moment. The gearbox still not quite ready to come up and out yet. And this plate is loose. I can see the spring should go in there, in here, because it's part of the mag catch. So this mag catch at the minute has lost its springiness, because it's not obviously pushed against the spring to keep it tight. So we'll sort that out shortly. So next thing, oh, there goes the gearbox. Just needed to tug a little bit harder because the wires were stuck on the motor contacts down in there. So there's our gearbox. We'll come to this shortly. So there's part of our mag catch system. So there's the mag catch. So that just slides in like that. There we go. Spring this plate then sits on top like that and screws down, and the spring itself goes in there, oh, like that. So if you put the spring in first, and then you put the mag catch in delicately, otherwise the spring just keeps exploding out. Come back to that later. Move that out of the way, and that out of the way. So we're down to the inner workings now in the pistol grip there. So we've got our selector plate there that moves a cut-off that engages with this, because this is our cut-off lever to enable single shot and full auto. Now in there, where have you come from? Okay, slight technical break there. So this fell out, this little part fell out, and I was racking my brain, where the hell does this go? And I figured it out now. So looking in the contacts in this orientation, and it sits, and it will sit, there's kind of like a gap for it, and it should more or less just sort of drop in place like that. Because then what happens is this little lever under here sits into this little hole here. So as you pull the trigger, it moves this, which moves this cut-off lever on the underside of the gearbox. So you've got this little thing here. Let's pop it back out. There we go. This little part, then in that orientation, and it just sits down into that gap down in there to do the cut off. So next thing I want to do is see if I can release the pistol grip. So I can see a screw there. At this point, can I just lift that out? So the selector plate then on the inside of the selector just literally lifts out. And this is one of the broken screws, so I don't know how I'm trying to unscrew it. and that's the other screw there, and that pistol grip did feel like it is coming in, so keep that to one side. There we go. So that just pulled out and the screw popped out. So basically these threads in this hole here are what's failed on this, but that's fully just detached from there, including the obviously part of the trigger guard, and that just clicks back in and screws back in just like that, so that you can access everything. So we've done those, get those two out of the way. The shorter screw was at the front left there, the longer screw was at the back there. So put those out of the way, put that out of the way. The rest of it is just the trigger mechanism. Put that out of the way, and then obviously you've got the sort of electrical contacts coming in from the up from the pistol grip through the wiring and into here. This can be lifted, all unscrewed and lifted out to work on this. Possibly in future I will look at doing some sort of video maybe to fit a MOSFET into this. So the gearbox then, teeny tiny little gearbox. This, just rotate that, so this will literally rotate out and pull out, and they are notoriously bad for air seal around the air nozzle because of the dodgy little system. The tappet plate here is this black bar that you can see, I can get the focus, that you can see coming out from the side of the gearbox there. This is the tappet plate. So let's have a look at, we need some tiny little torques. Let's see if our T6 will do it. When our T6 is going to do this. So let's get some T6 action on this. Now, as per usual, when you're taking screws out, make sure that you have kept them in the right order that you've taken them out, so that you can, even positionally, so you know where each screw is from, just in case it's different. Now, inside of here is not a 3-gear system like we are used to in traditional gearboxes. This is a 4-gear system, and they're super tiny. Not quite got that out fair enough. There we go, it's stuck to the motor. And then we've got another little one there. Boom. Get those out, they're all the same on this occasion. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop the shell. I'm going to try and get a screwdriver in the back there to catch the tappet, to catch the spring guide, and also well, trying to not lose everything. So I'm just prying it slightly with a flathead. There's no hole, unfortunately. Spring guide, there we go, pop. So I mean, you've got to admire the tiny little cuteness of it. Now I can tell you instantly that is going to be excellent if I could get an air seal on it. I can't get much air seal because it's leaking around there, but the fact that that is so firmly in there tells me that there's a good air seal in there. Got our tiny little spring and tiny little spring guide. Now upgrade parts are very sort of limited and in short supply for these. I believe Laylac stroke 9-ball do some, might have seen another brand as well, but they are few and far between. So we've got these tiny little gears. Got our sector gear there. We've got a little spring there for our tappet plate. I'm just going to lift that out. There we go. There's our tappet plate, which oddly enough I've owned several. I've owned like a TM, MP7, and I've had various sort of compact things like this, and I've never actually had a tappet plate break in one of these. Usually what breaks is either one of the gears breaks or the what they call it, the piston basically, but you can get a metal piston. They occasionally come in stock. So we've got our gears in there. We've got a little anti-reversal latch spring in there as well, teeny tiny little spring. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at putting this all back now and getting it possibly running again. Slight interruption there. So we're going to get these gear sets back in. So what we've got here is I've lifted the motor up ever so slightly so that the initial gear there is free moving. I'm just going to lift that out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the anti-reversal latch. So the anti-reversal latch then, teeny little thing, teeny tiny little spring that just hooks around it. Now hopefully my camera can show you that that needs to come off at that sort of angle so that it's basically pushing against the side of the gearbox. I'm going to drop it in and into the way of the gear. Now here comes the pain bit, because you've got to hold this out the way whilst dropping that gear in, and it goes in like that. And I know it's the right gear because we've got the 4 teeth underneath that the anti-reversal latch are springing against. There we go, and I can hear that wiring it back. Yeah, it's springing against those. Perfect. Now, some of you are wondering, well, how the hell do you know which gear is going next? Well, I know for certain initially because there's a bushing still on that one and a bushing still on that one, which indicates that it's those 2 gears. So this gear has to be the next gear by process of elimination. So that literally just drops in there and it interfaces on here. At this point now, I'm not going to quite push the motor back in just yet because I want to check these. What I've got to do next is I've got to put the sector gear in next. Now underneath we've got several teeth here. We've got the very bottom layer interacts with the cut-off lever, so that helps us with our full auto and everything. The next teeth setup interacts with the tappet plate. The next set of teeth interact with the piston, and the top teeth interact with the next gear that we're going to put in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in so that it's not quite hitting the tappet plate, so it's just before it gets the tappet plate, but it's not catching on the cutoff either, because I don't want that to happen. What I'm going to do now is I'm also, in fact, I'm going to insert the tappet plate spring. Now it basically sits like that up against the tappet plate, so the motor makes this quite a pain to do because the magnetic motor is grabbing the spring constantly, so it's trying to get it in without the motor, and swearing ensues. So I've done it at the minute, I'm just holding it sort of partially in place with my finger, whilst I bring the tappet plate in. Now, what I did is I just used considering how tiny this motor is, the magnets are damn strong, like really snapping, things are really snapping onto it. So I used a screwdriver just to help push it down, and then I pulled it back and in and away. So now I know that that's in there securely, and the sector gear is in, and it's ready to catch on that and pull it back. And then I can drop the last gear in, which has got a big gear set on top and a little one underneath, whereas the previous one is a little one on top and a bigger one underneath. And I'm just going to drop that in there like that. Now, yeah, I can see it from turning that, it's turning all of them, so I am happy with that. Lovely. So the motor, I've just clicked down with my thumb at the same time, so that's sat in position. Next thing I need to do is I need to bring in the assembly, piston assembly, cylinder assembly. So the air nozzle I'm going to leave out for now, so that's out and away, and I'm going to drop that in. And what we're looking for here is almost this T space shape on the front there needs to be more or less centered like that, and that sits in. And I'm looking for the piston. Oops. Oh no, it's all going wrong. No, caught it just in time. Perfect. I'm just trying to get the, there we go, the piston needs to sit on this track here, either side, a little teeth either side, so that's nice and in there. I've got the cylinder head in the right place for the nozzle to go in and latch into this little socket here, which is good. So before I can close this up, here comes a spring. I know Eagle 6 do upgrade springs for this as well. Maybe that needs to be the project, is a MOSFET and some upgrade parts. That went in really surprisingly easy. Makes me wonder what's going to explode out. And then I'm going to delicately bring in the top half. And at this point we're going to use a screwdriver to bring everything back in line. I think it's actually moved. That's jumped out, that's jumped out. There we go. Nearly that. There we go. So I just used a couple of little small ended screwdrivers there just to manipulate the gears about a little bit. And then I'm quickly going to throw all these screws back in before it's got the chance to explode again. Just be careful at the top there, there's two holes. It's only the left hole that needs to be accessed and used with a screw. So many innuendos. Perfect. So to bring the air nozzle back in then, I'm just going to put it in. I want to rotate it. The slot down, and I'm just going to rotate it up and in so it sits like that. Nice and springy, exactly how we want it. And then we can start bringing things back together now. So going to have a break 2 minutes to see if I've got a better screw to sink into there to secure that up. So it would appear I actually have got some screws that look like they're going to work better or keep it secure from it. So we're just going to slide the pistol grip up into there, and just to show you that the trigger guard there is just going to sit nicely in that lip there, and then this should all just click up into place. And I'm going to sink the two screws I've just got into there now. So they were Phillips head before. I've now got two flathead screws. If this works, I'm going to be well buzzing. Oh my lord, it actually has as well. See, this is what, finally, after years of keeping all the random little bits and pieces that I've used, like extras and you know, leftovers and all sorts of stuff, years worth of bits and pieces, finally I can say that it's been worthwhile keeping some of it. And that is rock solid on there, and everything looks to be working perfectly. Good clearance on that. So secured this new screw down in here, perfect. This new screw down in the back, perfect. That has gone really, really well, better than I could have hoped, really. So next I'm going to bring the selector plate back in, and that's just going to drop literally straight down in there, ready to connect with our selector when that goes back in. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this plate back in place as to where I figured it out it goes, which is in there. So that's now clicked nicely and securely in place, and we can bring the gearbox back in. So we're going to just put the wire in together. So there's nothing glamorous or easy way to do this. It is literally just going to be precariously balancing the wires in such a way as that they go on. So getting back to it then. Black wire goes on this side terminal, the red wire goes on that side. To be fair, the wires sit pretty much how they should be anyway. It's just a little bit fiddly to get them right. In fact, needle nose pliers will help here. Now, I'm not doing this with any great force or strength, just lightly gripping and pushing down. Lightly gripping, pushing down. It just allows me a little bit more dexterity than my chubby old fingers can muster. There we go. That's put on. Right, so now I'm going to just gently drop that in place. Make sure that little bar's there, and it is. Those are in, the selector's in. Just making sure that all the positioning's right. I know what we've forgot. We'll pull that back out. We forgot to do this first, so I'm going to bring in the mag release. I'm going to carefully put the spring back in there. I don't think there is any real careful way to do this. So I've just got my thumb in there. There we go. So I managed to get the spring in place like that, so it will compress. Now before that sort of explodes and does anything, I'm just going to bring this plate back in. Just now lost that screw. Oh. We're having a mare. Right, that's in. Right, this metal plate then is dropping in on top. I'm just going to secure this down. We will secure it down eventually. Right, and then bring this screw back in. Secure that down. Now, there we go. So this screw here we took out whilst the gearbox was still sat in, but we didn't need to do that, as it turns out. So I've put this metal plate back in. I've got one screw in here, I've got one screw in here. The reason I do this without knowing what I'm doing fully is so that you don't make these same mistakes. I'm making them all for you. Lucky things, such good service. So those are on them. I've got that front plate in, I've got all the little plates in. Just have a look round. Everything looks hunky-dory. Right, okay, so let's drop this in. Let's pull that back. Now when it comes in, there's a kind of like a notch at the back here that sits into the back of the gearbox. It just needs to click back into that, so it's not going anywhere. Then we can bring this locating plate back in that sort of locates it and keeps it secure backwards. And we'll put the little screw back in as well. That's back in. Next thing we can do then is we can bring the upper back in. Oh, whoa, well remembered. So we need the selector, so just looking for that flat space in the selector there to match with that tooth there. And there it is. So back into save, keep it in save. So I'm just going to bring this in. Oops. Oh, everything's falling apart. There we go. Right. Now, what I'm doing is just trying to line everything up simultaneously. Make sure the wires are not getting crimped. There we go. Selector can go back in again. There we go. There we go. And I got it back. So now that works. Perfect. And at this point then, bring back in the bolt. Might need to use something to tap it back through with. Keeping that backwards pressure, it's going in. There we go. I can see that the part is there for me to put the grub screw back in with. So there's my grub screw. Secure that in, and then we can bring the stop back in. That's now in. I'm just going to drop the screw through and then use the flathead again to secure it back in. There we go. Get it as flush as I can. There we go. And then the stock can click over, and there we go. We've done and reassembled it. So I hope that's been helpful to you. I hope you enjoyed that. Found it a little bit stressful myself. So please do remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.